Gino Pauselli from the University of Pennsylvania, an international relations scholar, discussing about aid, the motives of aid, political implications of aid. So what are, according to the international relations theories, the main motives of aid?
Well, basically there are two main motives, selfish and altruist motives, but actually what several studies on the IR theories say that there can be much more, but we can group them basically into donors being selfish, giving aid or resources to other countries in order to gain something, and don't actually caring about the well-being of recipients, and altruist motives are those that the donors actually give resources in order to improve life or conditions in the recipient country, whether that actually gives something back or not doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. And how about ideas and values? What are the role played by those concepts in the motives of aid?
According to one school of thought, actually ideas and values and identity are the core explanation for why foreign aid is actually given. One can think that if a country or if a society thinks of itself as an altruistic actor in the international community, then it will give foreign aid for altruistic motives. Or sometimes there are these ideas that the international system is anarchic and each actor in country is in it by itself, mm-hmm. and nobody will come to help them during a crisis. Then these societies or countries that held these kind of ideas usually are motivated by selfish interests. So the role of ideas and identities could be to explain both big sets of motives.
Uh-huh. Lately, we often talk about security and securitization of aid, also about dissemination of democratic values. How do theorists look at those motivations?
Right. The securitization of aid usually it's explained usually the most selfish motivations, because what the donors tries to do by giving aid is to increasing its own security by or maintaining stability in recipient country that otherwise, if a crisis emerges, it might have negative consequences on the donor, or maybe preventing the emergence of terrorist groups, because there is a lot of studies and empirical evidence that show that terrorists usually emerge in backward societies that don't give opportunities to people, and they engage in this kind of activities by blaming those societies that are richer than them. And in terms of democracy promotion, we have two main explanations. One of them is a more selfish one that says that, okay, countries promote democratic values or democratic institutions because that might make the world a better place for them, because democracies tend not to fight to each other, they might have cooperative relations, so this is kind of the liberal explanation, uh-huh. but it's in line with a more like selfish explanation, because it's in the mm-hmm. interest of the donor to create like a democratic community of countries in the world. And also there is this more altruistic explanation for democratic promotion that says that some countries or some societies actually believe that individuals should be free in terms of electing their governments and their representatives, and they try to promote these values that enhance the liberty of the mm-hmm. individuals through democratic institutions.
Okay, and lastly, I think you've made an extensive review of development studies. So what is your opinion on that from this perspective of the complexity of the motives of aid? Do you think they do address all these multiple causes? How do you see this body of literature?
I do think that usually development studies or scholarly work in foreign aid first or overlook what are like the motives and try to focus mm-hmm. on whether foreign aid is actually effective or not, which is an important question, or they make normative claims. They see certain motives, for example, selfish motives, and they point it out as something that is wrong with the system without trying to understand why there are actually selfish motives for foreign aid, and if there is a way to change that, or we should just live with that. Or if they see some altruistic behavior from some donors, they highlight that as something good and something that should be replicated by other donors without trying to think what are like the sources of that altruistic motivations.
Okay, thank you very much,
You're welcome.